Have you ever wondered why life hits the hardest right before everything changes? Why the darkest nights seem to arrive just moments before dawn? Why the universe sometimes waits until you're completely broken before revealing the very path that was meant to lift you higher than you ever imagined? Because tonight, you're about to hear the true story of a man who touched rock bottom so deeply that even hope seemed afraid to follow him there. Yet somehow, from that same darkness, he built a success so remarkable that people today still ask, how did he survive it? Before we begin, if you're watching this right now, take 1 second and subscribe to this channel because we bring you real stories that inspire, motivate, and remind you that your breakthrough might be closer than you think. And drop a comment below. What is your time and what location are you watching from? Let's see how far this story travels around the world. Now, let's begin. It started on a grey Thursday morning, the kind of morning where the clouds hang low like heavy thoughts, when the air smells like rain but never releases it, when everything feels as though it's holding on to something painful, something unsaid, something waiting to break. And on that morning, in a tiny room at the edge of a noisy city, a man named Daniel opened his eyes to a reality he no longer recognized. His business had collapsed, his savings were gone, his closest friends had disappeared the moment he needed them the most, and the world he had tried so hard to build stood in broken pieces around him. You see, Daniel wasn't always down. He once had plans, big plans, loud plans, plans that made people turn their heads and whisper, "He's going somewhere." But life has a way of testing those who dare to dream too loudly. For him, the fall came suddenly. A failed partnership, a debt he didn't create, a betrayal from someone he trusted like a brother. And within weeks, everything he had spent years building slipped out of his hands like water, leaving him with nothing but regret, confusion, and a silence so heavy it felt like it had weight. But the real breaking point wasn't the loss itself. It was the moment he realized he had no one left to call. That night, as he sat in the dark corner of his small room, the power out again, the rent overdue, a cold breeze entering through the cracked window, he felt something inside him collapse in a way he had never known before, like a final thread snapping inside his chest. He whispered to himself, "Is this really how my story ends?" No answer, just darkness, just silence, just that strange stillness that arrives when life forces you to confront yourself. He wanted to quit. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to rewind his life and choose a different path. But life doesn't offer rewind buttons, only pauses and choices. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. He remembered the words his mother once told him, "When the road disappears, my son, that is the moment you carve your own." He laughed bitterly, but those words, those simple, old, motherly words, felt like a hand reaching into the darkness, pulling him upright. Maybe, he thought, his story wasn't over. Maybe this darkness wasn't the enemy, but the place where something new could grow. The next morning, for the first time in weeks, he cleaned his room. He opened his window. He washed his face. He stood in front of the mirror, eyes sunken, voice cracked, spirit exhausted, and said quietly, "I refuse to die like this." He didn't know what success looked like anymore. He didn't know where he was going. But he knew one thing: he would take the next step, no matter how small. And sometimes the smallest step changes everything. He started reading again. Books on failure, leadership, rebuilding, mindset. Books he once bought out of curiosity, but now devoured out of desperation. He spent nights studying the mistakes that destroyed him, realizing that failure wasn't the end. It was data, information, a brutal but effective teacher. And then he took action. He used the last 7,000 naira he had to buy basic materials to start a small side hustle. Something so simple, so unglamorous, so humble, that even he felt embarrassed telling anyone about it. But he pushed through the embarrassment. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. Every night he returned exhausted. No applause, no encouragement, no support, just sweat, discipline, consistency, silence. But in that silence, something was changing. Weeks passed. Small income began to appear. Then more. Then orders increased, slowly at first, then faster, until he could barely keep up. People loved what he created. Not because it was perfect, but because it was authentic. honest, made with the same desperation and hunger that had once tried to destroy him. With the little money he saved, he bought better tools, upgraded his ideas, improved his craft, and every time doubt tried to whisper in his ear, he remembered that dark night when he sat alone, thinking he was finished. That night became his fuel, his fire, his turning point. In 6 months, he expanded. In 1 year, he opened a small shop. In 2 years, he was employing people who reminded him of his old self, lost, scared, but capable of greatness. And by the 3rd year, Daniel, the same man who once had nothing, the same man who sat in the dark, wondering if life still had space for him, the same man who was betrayed, abandoned, and forgotten, was officially a success. Not because he got lucky, not because someone rescued him, but because he refused to let the darkest moment become the final chapter. The truth is, everyone goes through darkness. Everyone reaches a point where everything seems impossible. Everyone has nights that feel endless. But sometimes, your darkest moment isn't the end. It's the birthplace of the version of you who was always meant to rise. Daniel didn't find success in light. He found it in the shadows, in the struggle, in the silence, in the moment he felt truly alone. And maybe, just maybe, you're standing in a similar moment right now. Maybe you're watching this because life has pushed you into a corner. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're fighting battles nobody knows about. Maybe you're one step away from giving up. But remember this: the darkest moment is not your burial. It is the soil where your rebirth begins. You don't need to see the whole road. You just need to take one step. One small step, one stubborn step. And with time, those steps turn into progress. Progress turns into momentum. Momentum turns into transformation. And transformation turns into a story worth telling. Just like Daniel's. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that you're stronger than your struggles, if it made you believe, even for a moment, that your breakthrough is still possible, then don't leave without subscribing to Heritage Base for more powerful stories like this. Comment below, "I will rise," if you're choosing strength over fear today. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because you never know. Your share might be the spark that saves someone's future.